In this video we're going to take a look at how to add and subtract decimals. But before we get there we're going to take a look at whole numbers. So let's say we had 14 plus 8. Now notice that we line up the ones place with the ones place and the tens place with what would be the tens place if I had any tens. What we've been doing here for years and years and years and years is lining up our place values. And because of that, we've also been lining up our decimals. And that is the key to adding and subtracting decimals. We have to line up the decimal places. So now let's take a look at some decimals. Let's say we have 14.7 and I want to add on to that 8.25. Well, the decimal here will need to line up with the decimal in 8.25. So that means my 8 goes there, my 2 there, and my 5 here. Once that's in place, we're ready to add. So if I have nothing plus 5, that's 5. And then if I have 7 plus 2, that gives me 9. And then the decimal and the decimal will line up with the decimal in the answer as well. 8 plus 2 is 12. Put the 2 down, carry the 1. And then 1 plus 1 gives me 2. So my answer is 22.95. Now, some of you might like to add in an extra 0 here just to fill that space, something to line up with that 5. But as we can see here in addition, it really doesn't matter because nothing plus 5 is still 5, just like 0 plus 5 is 5. For our next example, selected 42 minus 3.7. So remember, the key to this is we have to line up the decimals. But we can see a decimal clearly here on 3.7, but on 42 there's no decimal that we can see. So the challenge here is we need to think about where would the decimal be on 42 so that this is still 42. Well, if it was right here, then this would be 0.42. If it were right here, this would be 4.2. And if it were right here, this would be 42 point. Well, obviously that's the same as 42. So the decimal is invisible, but right here. So when I go to write my prop vertically, 42 point, the decimal goes after the 42, and then I need to line up this decimal with 3.7's decimal, so it's going to have to go right here, and then we'll put the 3 and the 7 in. Now, I have nothing minus 7. Well, I can't do that, so this time I have to put a 0 in. Now, 0 minus 7 will cause me to borrow, so I'm going to borrow from the 2, and so the 2 will become a 1. And then remember that each place value is worth 10 times as much as the place value below it. So taking 1 off of here will become 10 here. So 10 more than 0 is 10. And now I can subtract. 10 minus 7 is 3. And the decimals continue to line up even in the answer. And now 1 minus 3 will require me to borrow again. So that becomes a 3. And my 1 gets 10 more. So it becomes an 11. 11 minus 3 now is 8. And finally 3 minus nothing is 3. So my answer is 38.3. For our last example, I've selected 0.054 minus 0.0097. So we can clearly see both decimals on these numbers. So when I write this vertically, it should be very easy to line them up. So if that's my decimal, I need my other decimal right below it. So 0.0097. And just like last time, I have nothing minus 7, which will require me to put a 0 in there so I can borrow. So 4 becomes a 3, and my 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. 3 minus 9 I can't do, so I borrow from the 4, or excuse me, from the 5, and it becomes a 4. And then this 3 here will get 10 more and become a 13. 13 minus 9 then is 4. 4 minus 0 is 4. 0 minus 0 is 0. The decimals need to line up. And then 0 minus 0 is 0. So my answer, 0.0443. And that's how we add and subtract decimals.